From this video, you're going to be learning the following typical themes of the Jobava London. How to exploit the double pawns on the queen side, how to expand on the king side against the bishop f5 lines, what to do when they stop our main knight b5 idea, and we will be closing the video with the Nemtsov setup. And we'll be opening up with d4 and then playing knight c3 against pretty much all the standard replies, and he plays d5, stopping me from getting e4 and just developing the bishop, keeping an eye on this pawn. Plays e6, just gonna be playing knight b5, hitting c7. Let's see, are we gonna see another knight a6 game, or we're gonna be seeing the most critical bishop b4 check to a5? So on knight a6, it's actually important to play e3. So on c6, we can just play knight c3, and then the knight will be under a big threat of bishop takes. c6 is like most common move in the position. Kind of hard to live with this knight on b5 for a while. Keep bishop d7, I guess, is doable as well, but just playing knight f3, and in case of knight h5, this time we'll be playing bishop g5. I think we actually had that position previously, where I played this crazy piece sack after bishop e5, f6, I went g4 and took with a knight. This time we'll keep it definitely more casual, just meeting knight h5 with bishop g5 for sure. If he plays bishop e7, a4 I think is also fine. I think you have like many moves in this position. I don't think it's like super important what you play here. I might be wrong though, but I feel like you have many ways of dealing with this not so critical bishop d7 setup. So he takes, we can just like take, and against c6, I think we're spoiling the structure. Even though like that knight is kind of dumb, I have a feeling spoiling the structure is the right thing to do. And then gonna be castling. Just try to play it positional. Bishop d6, I think we're just taking, and then maybe breaking with c4. I think that's sort of the play there. If it gets to bishop d6, just trading and going c4, with idea to bring the queen out to like a4 as soon as we can. Yeah, bishop d6 kind of has to be played because bishop is like super annoying. They're controlling b8 square, so the rook can't really activate, so we do get to see it, and just gonna be taking and playing c4, opening up queen's path, perhaps even threatening to play c5. Opponent can't really take on c4 because he's gonna be left with like so many like ugly pawns. Pair of double pawns, you don't see that every day. And in case he doesn't, then he does go c5, but I think we have a very nice trick here. We have some kind of queen a4 and then queen a3, pinning that. I think we do it this way. I don't think queen d7 works because of queen takes, we're up a pawn. And knight takes also seems to be bad in view of like dc or like either knight e5. I think both moves are dangerous. King e7 also looks ugly to like dc5, and then cd, and we activate rooks. I think he's in trouble now. c5 was definitely a very aggressive move. Like maybe he can do that after he castles, but still very tricky. Yeah, he tries king e7, but I think we just like taking and then take on d5 with the idea that his gallery captured the pawn, and then we're also trying to bring the rooks with tempo like this. Can play queen b5, but there will be a check. That's like really annoying. Should also not forget about the queen lift, which can also be very powerful in like a lot of situations, but I think here the simple queen a3 should be good. Maybe also queen h4 check is fine. With the idea to meet f6 with e4. I actually like that idea quite a lot. Gonna go for it. Such a long move. I think those are like the nicest. And knight f6 allows rook c7. Like that's the issue with it. And just look how safe this king is on g1 compared to like this one. This is like so nice. Is he gonna try king d6? I mean, we just take on f7. So he has to play like king f8, I'm assuming, but then he's in like a lot of trouble after knight g5. Okay, so opponent does play king f8 as expected. I think we just go knight g5, sort of forcing knight d7. Pretty much only move that I can see defending f7, but he's gonna be losing that somehow. Question is how. Maybe like the simple rook d1. That should be good enough. And like knight e5, we have knight takes on e6 with mate to come. And I think that's like simplest. That's genuinely the simplest. Yeah, knight d7, just rook d1. I think he's gonna play there, but okay, rook d8 is just bad in view of knight e6. And then also like queen's coming into the attack and we just mate. Okay, he also resigns, which is like pretty nice. I'm gonna play d4 and then knight c3. But it looks like we're seeing the Slav defense, and this is definitely getting super interesting, especially when they develop the bishop to like f5. Because then we play with f3 and we're gonna be having this pawn storm on the king side that is just like super typical for these lines, and I think white is getting a bit of an easier position to play. Gonna be going g4. He usually has a choice between like h6 and h5 setups. Yeah, I think we're gonna be playing bishop d3 this time. Then take with a queen. Okay, I don't think e6 is like a great move because it allows us to take on h7 and he has to like make a pretty awkward recapture, something like queen d2. I'm not really bothered by the check because there's bishop g3, preparing to castle long, and I think we actually got a bit of an improved version with the queen on d2 because queen on d3 is like fine, but it usually has to step back to like d2, so I think it's like a small improvement for us. I think next up we just play knight e2. I think maybe just taking with a knight on f4, and then we're pushing pawns with h4 and g5. Taking with a pawn could be like interesting, but I think just knight takes is so natural and so good. Opponent plays knight d7 in this position. I think we're gonna be going h4. Idea to play g5 next. We see queen a5. Just gonna be going g5, going directly for the initiative. And I think problem for my opponent is that g6 is also gonna come next, because he can try to play like knight g8, keeping the position closed like this, but then g6 is like coming. It's like pretty annoying. Opponent plays this like ugly looking knight h7. I think we can perhaps go same g6, but then problem is after pawn takes we don't really get to take there. I mean we can, but it's not that amazing as it looks. And also g6, pawn takes, knight takes, he has rook g8, and I'm not sure how he may progress. So perhaps taking and creating a weakness might be better, or simply playing e4, expanding. I think taking and playing like rook g1, rook g7 is like the easy way to deal with this, so I'm just gonna do that. So he just takes. I'm gonna be activating this guy. I don't think there's like much point using this rook since there's not like much action going over the h file, so I'm gonna be using this one. And we're just trying to infiltrate next. Trying to put some pressure on this f7 square. He's forced to defend with the d rook because the h rook is defending the knight. And a logical move could be to like double. Do we play king b1? They say should always play king b1. Should we trust them? I'm not sure king b1 is like ideal here. It's kind of useful still, because we could potentially have some knight d5 tactics. But we might want to use this tempo to do something else. I think e4 though is like such a good move now, with the idea that well, he's gonna play knight f6 eventually, but then he's gonna get hit by e5. So I think that is like really important. I think we're getting like a really nice push right now. I think this could be potentially like a very instructive game for the Jobava if I don't blunder like a rook in a move like I usually do. So let's see. Just trying to like slowly squeeze my opponent with e5. So yeah, he goes knight f6 as I was expecting it, but now e5. He has knight e8, but knight is looking really passive. Sure, he's like getting rid of my rook for the moment, but at what cost? I think it's like a pretty high cost. Do we go rook g2 or rook g4? Because like I'm kind of trying to invite h5 because we have rook there, but I guess we're gonna be going rook g3 with the idea to like keep queen g2 as sort of an alternative. Gonna double up, winning the file. He can't really contest. And this is kind of the problem for my opponent. We're gonna be putting a lot of pressure on that weakness. He does go c5. That is like really ambitious. Maybe it's a good move, undermining my pawns. Okay, I think 92. Just making room for f4. Making sure this pawn is like well defended. We'll need to speed up a bit now. Okay, he goes c4. But I don't think there's like much attack going on. Maybe I'm wrong. Just a3 so we can meet b5 with like knight somewhere. Maybe like knight e4. So yeah, I think we're gonna be rerouting this knight to like e3. Yeah, I just need to like speed up with this. Potentially play queen f4 in the next move. I think I should have just played queen f4. 91 was so bad. I mean, if he trades queens, it's gonna be like a really nice squeeze. But he can play queen b6 and maybe it's still tricky, okay. I should have played queen f4 and I think it was just like much better after b5 in this position. Because like b4 there's like no attack, right? We can take. And anyways, I think it's gonna be like a nice endgame. It's sort of a thematic endgame. Like, if I made a Jobava course, this has gotta be like a thematic endgame. So I think we play h5 or like knight f4, stopping that knight reaching g6. Maybe this was also fine. I just wanted to like activate first and then just gonna play like knight e3. And then this knight actually might be used to like h5. Okay, I think we need to block that pawn. Sooner or later, fixing the weakness. Should have started with it, maybe. If he plays knight h7, trying to reach g5, I think we've got a nice idea. How about trying to get a lot of pawns? I'm sure you guys would like that idea. Not sure it's good though. I don't promise this is good, but it's definitely fun. Okay, he's got knight g5. Because I can't go f4, but I'm gonna play king e2. Okay, this next. Thing is, we're gonna be getting either f4 f5 or f4 d5. So with like the two connected pawns there, it looks interesting. It's definitely not something that we were forced to do, but I kind of like to go for this fun ways of playing. I think it shows sort of a new perspective to the game, even though it's probably bad. I think it's very entertaining. Just gonna play like rook g6. Pinning. Could potentially just play something like f5 next or like d5. f5 has the perk of, let's say if they go to e7, we have knight d5 as a move. And he goes to f7. Just like that, but knight f5, and we're hitting this pawn as well, so it's gonna be the third pawn. Not saying we need to rush with taking though. Might be better to wait and play d5 e6. So he takes, and I think we just take which way? I think this way. Just because we want to keep the two passed pawns that are like rolling now. Even though he gets an additional option with knight g5, I think that's bad in view of knight h6. So I think not only like the pawns are really strong, but also his king is really weak, and now suddenly he cracks under pressure. But I think position was also getting super close to winning now, objectively speaking. And he also resigns. Okay, I think that was nice. I don't like the fact that I have played knight f4 instead of h5 in the endgame phase. So yeah, we can go there. As I said, I played knight f4, is still like good, but h5 such a technical move, just making this knight passive and also fixing the weak pawn. This is just like crashing with f4 f5 now, knight e3, knight f4. Not sure why I play knight f4. It was just also kind of a time trouble, so didn't really had much time to consider my options. But let's check out the piece sack. Okay, apparently it's only equal if opponent finds best defense. But I should play knight c3, hitting pawn on b5. And okay, here f6 was just a bad move because of f4, and I'm just like much better now, and it's just so easy to play as white. Taking with a d pawn also fine. Then yeah, rest was simple. Okay, get a white pieces. Just gonna be playing d4 and knight c3 on the next move. I don't really think, by the way, you gain anything by playing bishop f4, trying to trick your opponent thinking that you're playing in standard London instead of a Jobava one. I mean, sure, maybe you win a few things, like let's say, for example, if the game starts with like d4, d5 and you play knight c3, sure, it's gonna be more obvious you're playing the Jobava, but I don't think it's like worth doing that. So yeah, that's just like the overall answer. He plays e6. Again, e4 is going for the French. I could do that just for fun, showing you a French, but I don't think it's really like the goal of the series. So I think we're just gonna be sticking with the bishop f4 ideas. And yeah, okay, he plays a6, anticipating my knight b5 move. I'm just gonna be playing e3. Could have maybe considered d4, even though I don't think he was necessarily best. Goes b6, not like queen f3 is sort of an interesting move. Playing for long castle, but it's like getting into like super weird games. Yeah, could definitely do that. Pretty sure you guys want me to do it. Okay, I'm gonna go for it. This is like doable also in like the normal London, but more so in the Jobava, I would say. It's not like any theory here, we're just like freestyling pretty much. Maybe you should have played queen h3, that's kind of true, but I don't know, e4 felt natural enough, like d5. e5, knight e4 could be tricky, but maybe d5 we just play bishop d3. So yeah, I think just developing this way should be fine. And castles, queen h3 with idea of e5 and mating. I think that's sort of an interesting idea. Plays knight c6, hitting the pawn. I think we'll just develop and defend. So notice that we're always sort of multitasking, finishing development, defending the pawns. We're trying to, do many things at once. That's how you, are usually very successful in the opening phase. And among the fact that he has less space, this rook on a7 looks really misplaced. But okay, I mean, if he plays knight b4, I don't think it's such a bad position for him, because this is a potentially very dangerous bishop. I don't think I want to play a3, stopping knight b4. Feels like a bit of a loss of a tempo, even though this is an important piece. a3, on the other hand, is giving him ideas of b5, which, sure, it's not gonna be that important, but I don't think we need to allow such things. Just gonna be playing solid king b1. He plays knight b4, so be it. Maybe we just play g4. If he castles, I think, just queen h3 with this idea. Maybe knight b4. Yeah, I don't really like bishop c4 because of d5. But I think knight b4. Yeah, he goes for it, but maybe we just like start the attack now with g4. If knight takes, obviously we take with the c pawn, reinforcing the center. Thinking with the rook was definitely not really a good option because of d5 and then knight e4. So now d5 we can just play like e5 and mind our own business on the king side. And this just looks very nice for white overall. See, it's really a question whether he's actually gonna castle short or not, because he like needs to commit at some point. He can't really play with the king in the center forever. So plays knight d7. Might be thinking of ideas such as e5. Maybe we could like put on the prophylactical glasses on, but I think we can just like go h4. Maybe he actually takes it, who knows. I don't think we actually need to gamble like that. Maybe just play queen g3. I think it's a useful move, like preparing h4 and also stopping e5. I think I like queen g3. Also preparing g5. If he plays there, just queen g2 and then threatening g5 and bishop can get trapped in some lines. Yeah. Can play this move. I don't think it really matters that much. Just h4 and then g5. Could have started g5 as well. Again, probably there's not big difference, and I think we have a lot of play against the king while he doesn't on the other side. And yeah, I think this makes it one-way traffic pretty much. Yeah, g5 next. He still cannot break in the center, which is nice. Just gonna go g5. So opponent plays e5 in this position. I could like really go greedy, and he wants to take, and then he's got like bishop pair. He's down a pawn, but like the bishops could compensate. So I think we don't really want to go greedy in this case. Just playing bishop e3, making room for the f pawn, and in case he takes, we're like happy to take with a knight. Idea to bring it all the way to f5, and yeah, I think it's just really important to realize that yeah, grabbing that pawn was not really helping our side. And same against c5, it doesn't really yeah, give us anything if we take either of these pawns. So it's just like really nice to play d5, closing this bishop. Notice that he has the bishop pair, meaning that opening our position should be benefiting black. We have two knights, and yeah, I mean, we're definitely yeah, looking forward to close down the position, making his bishops passive. I think if you can actually like understand the small nuance, it will sort of improve your understanding overall of any chess middle game. And yeah, we've got like the extra space. He's got like a super passive position. Yeah, we're just like playing f4, taking with a knight. He goes f5, kind of yeah, pressing the panic button. I think just going for the en passant is really nice, threatening mate in one. Think any capture is bad after like f5. Yeah, note that again he's trying to like take and then open up the bishop and also use the e5 square for the knight, so we should just not allow that. Just play f5. All of his pieces are like so passive, and yeah, just use the g file next. Perhaps even use this rook, and yeah, like bishop g5 ideas. Like simplest thing would honestly be, okay, bring the rook because it's like supernatural, and then we just like need to bring this knight in the attack. Another nice maneuver would be like bringing this knight all the way to g4, but I think just simply bringing the knight to like h5 might be better. Okay, if he plays b5 with the idea to play b4, I think I'm just gonna go knight d1 and then get it all the way to g4, just anticipating his b4 push. Perhaps could start with it as well. Also, like a super useful idea might be to push the h pawn, but okay, because he's doing it, just gonna go for what I've promised. Yeah, knight f2, getting it to g4. If c4, we can actually just take, because he's unable to take with a knight because the rook will drop. Another downside of having placed the stupid rook. And I think at this point, his best practical chance is to like take 1d5 and sacrifice a piece for 2 pawns. Sure, it's still gonna be lost, but I think it's this way he's like at least kind of complicating things a bit, because now it's just like super one-sided and it's just like devastating. Knight h6 is, by the way, a huge threat now, just like winning the exchange. He sidestepped that. Okay, the rooks are kind of coordinating nicely, but I think he's just like doomed after getting the pawn to like h6. Bishop g5 is not helping because of knight e5 tactic, and we're winning a pawn and like position is collapsing, because like we have intermezzo on f7, and also like after pawn takes, we win that bishop. So yeah, this is a huge threat. He can't really play h6 because of knight takes, I think. And it looks kind of mating. Maybe it's not working yet. Still need to prepare it, but it just feels losing if he plays h6. Need to come up with maybe like a precise solution. Okay, he goes bishop g5, but it's just losing to this, as I was saying, because we take. I think h6 was losing as well. I just haven't really found how just yet. Just like collecting the bishop now, winning the free pawn. h6 is coming next, opening up the position with decisive effects, I would say. I think he plays queen e8, just defending the pawn, but just h6 I think should win. Or queen d6, gonna be doing this move if he takes. There's nice mate with bishop f6. He can try g6, but it's still lost. Yeah, just like pawn takes, I'm assuming, queen takes, and queen h4 or something. Okay, g6, pawn takes, queen g6 is actually losing because it's dropping e5 pawn, and like g6 takes, pawn takes, I think maybe even h7 to open things up is nice. Just a little bit of a pawn sack. Pretty crushing right now. He goes c4, trying to create some kind of counterplay. It shouldn't really work, I guess. It's just like way too slow. I guess like a really nice move is just to play d4 because it's like pinned and we're threatening to take on e5 with the pawn and just create like a massive center. So yeah, this just looks like optically really nice. And objectively it's also crashing. Yeah, opponent also kind of timing down. Not really much he can do about us. He is just pretty much defenseless. Would be nice if he takes on h6 because we get a nice checkmate with bishop f6. Yeah, sacrificing the bishop and then getting checkmate on g8, but I don't know. I don't really think he's gonna allow it. He plays knight d7. Good take, rook takes. Looking for like the final blow. Obviously anything wins. Probably... Okay, actually like a super fun line is this. Pawn takes and then queen g7, rook takes, pawn takes, king g8 and then rook h7. And I'm like threatening to maybe it's not winning. Maybe I'm just talking nonsense and I shouldn't do this kind of things. I think easiest is just like dropping the bishop somewhere, like bishop there. Even. Okay, perhaps to d2. And there's like a deadly threat of taking, and the only way to defend is like moving the knight, but then e5 drops. So I think bishop d2 is like cleanest, maybe bishop c1 even better. Okay, you can take and then rook h7, that's like clearly simplest solution. Yeah, I can't take because then we mate, and this is also checkmate on h8, so I think that was like a pretty clean game. I don't know. I actually am curious about the percentage of this game, even though I don't really value the score that much that chess.com gives you at the end of the game. But I just have a feeling that this was a pretty precise game. Okay, so we're getting the white pieces. Gonna be playing d4 followed by knight c3, going for the Jobava London. Ideas of e4. We see e6 inviting e4, and then maybe they will go for some kind of a French, but just gonna be playing bishop f4, asking my opponent to play d5 so we can get back into the Jobava lines. And in case he doesn't, yeah, it's gonna be like pretty strange if he's trying to like deviate. He goes bishop b4. I guess we're getting into some pretty weird stuff. I don't think this is like really fury, but I think maybe just queen d3 should be fine. I've noticed queen d3 being a common move against this quick bishop b4 lines, but I'm not sure it's great here because yeah, it works better with like the pawn on d5 because black's got some additional ideas of taking and playing knight d5, hitting not only the queen but also the bishop. So maybe if he goes for takes, we take with a pawn. Queen is kind of nice, it's supporting e4. Goes knight d5. Obviously we can't take because of the pin, but we can simply step back with a bishop, I think. And I think I like this position now because the queen can potentially swing over to g3. And also we have ideas of playing e4. And now it's really important to actually like keep bishops on the board, because we have a little bit of a space advantage and trading pieces would definitely help black. So we need to like keep the bishops, I think, and then just expand in the center with e4. He's forced to like move this bishop, and then we can just get up some space with e4. And I think white has a small edge. Yeah. Queen g3 could be a nice idea, but he can simply castle, because on bishop h6, they can simply defend with this move. So just gonna be going e4, and if they castle, then queen g3 could be potentially an idea. Also not forced to go for it, but kind of like it, making room for like the bishop to develop to d3. I think this is like a nice move. In case he plays there, maybe we just go bishop d3. The idea is that on bishop b7 takes, he's got this annoying move. Maybe we can just play queen g4 though and hang on to the pawn. Maybe that's actually takeable on g7 if he does not defend. So I think he should maybe play g6, but it looks kind of ugly. Because problem with castle is bishop h6, and now on bishop f6 we have e5. And I think white wins. We have bishop to f8, and it seems like opponent is taking some like really drastic measures dealing with this threat against g7. It's sort of a good move just because it's not committing, but it's like terrible because it's yeah, keeping king in the center of the board, and yeah, all this kind of stuff. So it's just like not prioritizing development, and I don't necessarily see an immediate way of punishing this, but I guess we can simply develop normally. I'll start with knight f3 just in case he plays bishop a6. Maybe we can just take, because if I started bishop d3, maybe he has that and I have to like spend another tempo taking. Not necessarily true, because I can just leave the bishop on d3 as well, but trying to highlight some of the potential differences between these two moves, even though I think it shouldn't really change much. We're just playing e5. We're pretty much getting into a French, and now we get a position that I was mentioning, and I'm like trying to understand whether we need to take on a6, or it's better to play bishop d3 and try to invite our opponent in taking that, so we can take this way. I think I will just go for this because it just seems like a bit faster. I think bishop d3 was anyways going to be met with some kind of c5, and then he either takes on d3, takes on d4. I'm like not sure it makes a huge difference. Maybe it was playable, but I felt like this should be easier, and we could definitely castle. That is sort of the supernatural way of playing this, but maybe going h4 is a bit better. Idea is to play h5 and then like bring the rook over. This does not really achieve much because you can simply play queen d7. Maybe an idea of a4, a5 should also not be neglected, but I don't think it's like critical now. Just gonna do this. We're actually getting into a position that is super typical for the French. And yeah, I mean, I think this is a very interesting version for my opponent. But I don't really like the fact that, you know, he's playing with us like passive king side, but maybe he can simply make a living by playing queen d7 and long castle. Queen e7 is not really the square though for the queen. That is a bit of a positional mistake, because queen belongs onto d7 in like these lines, and he's definitely preparing that. Maybe some queen a3 ideas as well. So I think a4 is like what the position is calling for here, with the idea that if he's going there, maybe we have a5. He does go c5. Just gonna continue h5 maybe. Another potential idea of my opponent in this position could be to take on d4 and then play knight b4. There's not really much we can do to stop that, and yeah, like playing rook b1, stopping knight b4 there, I don't think it's really worth it. I think we just like continue with the normal plan. So he goes like cd, and then he plays knight b4, I think. I might be looking insane for saying that, but maybe king d1 is not such a bad move. But okay, I mean, I thought rook c8 we have c3, but then knight d3 looks really unpleasant, so I don't think that's a good move. That's coming. And we'll need to like defend the spawn somehow. Maybe we can actually ignore it by castling, because he's also kind of behind the development. Yeah, strangely enough, castling might be best here. Just gonna go for it. Because knight c2 we have rook c1 and I think we're having the initiative. He's gotta play knight a3. Will he play it though? I feel like we should be having something there. Knight a3 is sort of only move, bringing it to c4. Because knight b4 we can take and play rook c7 and then it's a disaster. So he plays knight a3, I mean. Opponent's finding like a lot of good moves. Okay, so I think I've got a trick. I'm gonna be playing this and then h6 next. And if he takes it, we're gonna be having this trap, playing bishop f6 and like winning the rook. I think he just goes there, idea to like hit the pawn. But then I think h6 is... I mean h6 is anyways unstoppable at this point. I think it's giving us good play. I mean it looks juicy, not sure it is. So opponent playing f6. Can we just like take and then play rook c7? He's got like... Can he survive with queen d8? Kinda doubt that. Got like rook e1. I think we've got to play something like this. And then rook c7. I think maybe this is better, but okay, I mean bishop f4 and it just looks like terrible. And like queen d8... I think we've got like rook e1 and bishop d6. There will be rook e6. That looks just crashing. It's okay, queen d6, but... I mean, first of all, taking on f6 is also doable. Also need to mention that this move is fine. But I'm thinking it can be better to just play like this. Forcing... I think maybe like queen d8 and then we play rook e1. Yeah, I think this is just like winning now. Because his king is getting exposed. After this move, hitting the critical weakness on e6. Yeah, rook e1, hitting the pawn. Problem for my opponent is that knight can't really come back into the game now. Also, his rooks are not really participating either, and his position is just like collapsing right now. Okay, so he tries bishop e7, but I think he can simply take, and then this is gonna be played on the next move. But I think my opponent played much better than his reading for some reason. I don't know. To me, it felt like I had to find a number of good moves to actually win this game. Even though it's actually like a pretty quick win, I really had to like come up with some ideas. Like from the opening, then it got to like the French. It was kind of a tricky game. Thanks a lot for making it this far into the video, and if you're looking for more content, make sure to check out some of the previous episodes from the same series.